In this episode, we look at idolization, false prophets, and the kind of psychology of self-worth that falls behind these two things. As well as little things like imposter syndrome. So if you yourself feel like you struggle with self-worth issues, or you've been in a position where you've idolized someone and put them on a pedestal and wondered why, or are still going through some of those motions, then make sure you tune into this episode as we also go into some of the little mindset shifts you can take and the little things you can do to help reverse or deprogram this particular program. Welcome, it's your host, the meditation coach Manvir, and today I'm with a very, very special guest, my brother Charlie, and I'm going to let him introduce himself in a moment, but I just wanted to say that one thing I love about my brother over here is the way he articulates and the way he explains things, because from that I realize that he's someone who actually really understands what he's doing, because you can be a master at something, but to be able to teach it is another skill set. And that's what I really appreciate about my brother over here. So Charlie, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, man. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm really honored to share this space with you. It's been quite a while since we last connected. So
yeah,
this is going to be good. This is going to be fun, and I trust that this will be a conversation that's going to provide some value definitely to whoever's listening. So my name is Charlie, and I don't know what it is that I can say who I am or what it is that I do, because I'm still figuring that stuff out. But I do many things, and one of the things that I do is I like to have conversations, right? I like to have conversations about real topics, things that are relatable, things that everybody, I would say, can resonate with, things that everybody's going through. So I feel like having this conversation today with you is gonna bring the value for people to hopefully resonate with and maybe even apply themselves. Let's see.
Yeah, man, and I love the how you just started off with honesty, like, hey, I'm still figuring out and I'm doing these things, because it perfectly ties into what we're talking about today. And we're gonna be skimming over just roughly idolization, kind of false prophets, and the kind of psychology that makes one person idolized. So I guess my first question, just to get into it, is what has your story been in general, or what have you seen in general when it comes to idolization? Like, have you ever been in that position yourself?
Yeah. I've been in that position, I would say, in really like different periods and different times in my life. Even when I was young, I think when we first come into this experience, naturally we're always going to have that idolization with the mother, right?
Yeah.
That's the first experience that we have with the mum. And it's interesting when I look back and observe my relationships with my relationship with my parents when I was super young. I was way more attached to my mum than I was my dad, right? And I think a lot of people have that. As I grew up, naturally that became more, that the relationships matured, and I started to spend more time with my dad, and I started to understand my dad and understand the masculine presence in my life more and more and more. And in doing that, I appreciate it more. But even then, there's always going to be this connection to, or idolization of, the mother, because that's where we all come from, right? We all came from our mother. So that was the first instance. And then as I grew older, especially into my teenage years, I definitely suffered from a lot of I was very self-conscious. I had a lot of things going on with myself in terms of not feeling good enough. What it's like when you go through puberty and stuff like that. Very self-conscious about like stuff on my skin, and growing up having spots and acne and all that kind of thing. And then you tend to kind of find that those kind of thoughts that you have about yourself, you look at somebody else who, say, has the skin that you want, or has the hair that you want, has the girl that you want, and whatever, and then you start to, even it can even be subtle, But you start to experience a little bit of that idolization, and it may not even be the person themselves in this case. Sometimes it can just be something that the person has,
Yeah.
right? But that does tend to lead to you maybe unknowingly idolizing that person as well. So there's always been these different variants or these different degrees. I don't even like to use the word variants now, given what's going on in the world. But these different different degrees of idolization. It's funny how they manifest and the forms that they come in. But I feel that the more that I've learned to appreciate myself and understand myself and appreciate me for who I am, the less I'm inclined to look outside of myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say on that. Yeah.
Wow. To be honest, you already blew my mind, because I didn't think about that aspect of the idolization you're not even aware of. Because I'm just thinking back, like, hey, the amount of, because for a long time in my period, when I'm growing up, a lot of my goals were based on what I was seeing outside, like basically idolization. Like those weren't things that I genuinely wanted. Like, don't get me wrong, like the whole the traveling and everything like that was kind of like I wanted to work remotely, which I still want to do, but it wasn't a primary goal of mine. But for some reason I kind of ignored myself and set that there, because I'm like, oh, this is what I want. And then connecting that back to the worthiness aspect and what you said with the first idolization relationship with the mother, because she's giving that care, she's giving that love. So it's almost like the idolization is like a form of you wanted to be that person or something to get that love. So that's a beautiful point. So then let's break this down. So like, why is the psychology of someone as of the version of you that was idolizing, like what other things were in there? And is there anything, like, do you see how it's playing out in your life?
Yeah, I think I've always I'm my own worst enemy, right? And I'm my biggest critic as well. Like if I don't do the things that I say to myself that I'm going to do, then I go through periods of where I punish myself for that, right? And I shouldn't, but I do. And it's just a human thing. I'm sure many people go through this too. But I've always found it's always been interesting for me on my path and on my journey of like healing and being able to cultivate that appreciation for myself. I've always realized that people have always seen the great things in me, and I haven't really been able to see them in myself, right?
Yes.
And it didn't really matter how many times that my family members or close friends would even pay me a compliment or just tell me how they would appreciate me.
Yeah,
it would always go one in one ear and out the other, because it doesn't really like solidify and become a part of you unless you really embody it. So I've always found that the things that I want, again, going back to not being able to see these things within myself, I would just naturally, given that we are in a physical external experience, I've always gone outside of myself to seek that, right?
Yeah.
And then I would meet people in life, and even some of my close friends, there would be things about my close friends where I'd be like, wow, it's just an appreciation of people and uniqueness, and knowing that everybody is unique and everybody has their own expression, if you like. This wasn't an awareness that I had when I was younger. I didn't have this level of awareness. So when I was younger, especially in like my school days, there would be things about other people that I would like appreciate, but then because I didn't have that awareness of knowing that this was their uniqueness, right?
Yeah.
I looked at that as if it was something that I wanted.
Yeah.
Something that I wanted to.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But what I was failing to do is I was failing to like learn and appreciate my uniqueness.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my partner was literally having a conversation with me last night about how when she was in school, or college rather, for years, right? Her and her friend, Catherine was very jealous, not jealous, but very in admiration of what this girl had as a person, right? And then a couple of years later, she met the same girl, and the girl said, "Oh, I just want to say to you that I was jealous of you all the way through college."
Wow.
And they're like, "What? Wow. I was jealous. Like, I was jealous of you. You were jealous of me?" Like, so
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah,
as do you know what I mean? That's just a prime example of like, as humans, failing to recognize our uniqueness, the gifts and the skills that we have, and just our expression as a human being, which always comes natural to us because it comes from that unique place. Failing to recognize that and appreciating that, we tend to look outside of ourselves, and this is
yeah,
the problem. This is the real issue. If you're always going to be looking outside of yourself for these things, you're going to fail to recognize it and realize that you do have your own divine gift, which is your unique individuality, right?
yeah. Yeah, man, this literally brings again another memory of mine, which is shout out to my first meditation teacher, Shalom Melchizedek.
Yeah, shout out Shalom, man. He's a great guy. Great
Yeah,
guy.
when I was doing my meditation training with him, we had got to a point. He was like, "Okay, Manvir, like you're done. I've got nothing more to teach you." And I just like, even though he said that, and he said it like the last 3 4 sessions, he just said, "Yo, you're good, you're good, you're good." It wasn't sinking in for me, and even coming to teach meditation, I took so long just to come and teach it because of what he said, failing to recognize my own uniqueness. And it blows my mind again because it's one of those things where you see in others easier than you see in yourself. Because I remember growing up, I started off with growing up all the time, but I remember in university, like there were people doing my course, which was software engineering at the time, and I knew for a fact that, you know, they didn't actually want to do it. And I'm seeing all these talents and I'm like, well, do you even realize that your ability to do this, I don't even know how you can even do it. Like you really should, you know, start putting more attention into this as well. And this actually kind of brings me into a topic that I'm going to actually do an episode about, which is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to ask you, have you experienced imposter syndrome? What experiences have you had with that?
Yeah, I'll go through that now. It's like I do it now. It's like, am I credible enough to even speak on these topics? Right? Am I credible enough to have these conversations or even teach or guide someone in on this specific in a specific subject? What makes me credible? I think that the credibility, or just knowing that I'm worthy enough to do certain things in life, always comes back to me. For me, it's always about experience, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not one that really likes to speak about much in if I haven't had the experience, because knowledge is knowledge,
Yeah.
but obviously knowledge through experience becomes wisdom, right?
Yeah.
So I always appreciate listening to other people that have had the experience, because then it becomes relatable. And I'm the same too. And I'm just, it's a practice, you know. I'm reminding myself continuously that yes, I am credible enough to speak on this subject. Yes, I am worthy to teach this. And you can always kind of tap into that even more by the feedback that you get from people, in terms of who it is that you're speaking to, or who it is that you're sharing your wisdom with. And just imposter syndrome is always going to be present, I think, for all of us, because again, it goes back to that self-worth, right?
Yeah.
Always goes back to self-worth. If you look at the people who are, you know, some of the great talkers, some of the great thinkers, some of the great leaders, and I'm talking like uniquely, right? The unique people that do that, they really do it with such conviction and such like empowerment, that you know it's coming from a place where they really have been able to like center in their self-worth.
That is such a major point, because I literally so basically what I'm gonna say is that we block so much abundance just due to this self-worth and this imposter syndrome. Because in the coaching program I'm in right now, literally there's people that, well, let's say the founders of this coaching program charges like 100K to work for the person in a year. And essentially he even says himself, there's not really much difference between what a person who's charging like $100 per session versus someone who's charging 100K per session, except for the fact they've owned their worth. because it's pretty much the same thing that you're teaching again and again. And even with the ability to speak on a topic, it's like the lesson's the same, you just learn it at a deeper degree every time you make that cycle around. And what I found funny actually is, again with the credibility, is that okay, I'm a meditator, like I meditate, I do all this meditation, I look after my health, I've been in this game. However, my mom does none of that. But when she speaks from her heart, when I'm in that mode that I need some advice and she speaks from the heart, I'm like, it's like there's almost no point of me doing any of that, because the wisdom she starts speaking from her heart just completely is like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
So again, it's just, and I feel this slides us into the other piece of this topic, which is the false prophet aspect, because a dangerous thing I feel is, especially when you with the self-worth aspect and imposter syndrome and idolization, is when you start idolizing someone who, not saying they're a good or bad person, but you kind of put them on a pedestal to where you think they know
Jesus.
There you go, Jesus. Yeah.
Jesus Christ complex.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. But to where it's like, it's like almost like they know what's better for me than I do, kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't think that the societal structures and the internet and stuff like that today really does aid or help us in any way when it comes to self-worth. Instagram as an example. I just want to reiterate to everybody that they have to remember that Instagram is fake, and I've had many experiences, especially over the last 2 years, with meeting people that present themselves in a particular way, because that is possible with the internet. It gives people the opportunity to do that. A different kind of imposter syndrome. They're just now an imposter rather than actually having the syndrome. So bear in mind that on the internet, people can present themselves in any way that they can. So even though we do see these people that say they do come across as empowered, right? As we kind of look at them as, wow, they're doing what it is that I want to do, but I don't have that self-worth, or I don't feel confident enough to do what it is that they're doing. We have to remember that these people are just people too, right? Yeah. And a lot of these people that do present themselves in a particular way online, I've had the pleasure of meeting them. I say pleasure, I've had the pleasure of meeting these people over the last 2 years, a good number of them, and not everything is how it was portrayed to be, right? So just people need to be mindful of that, I think, in terms of basing in terms of idolization. A lot of it does come from internet figures now, specifically, right? And I feel, again, everybody can present themselves in any way that they can. But I think that we're always looking for someone, we're always looking for something, right? Whatever it is, it's someone or something. Usually it's someone to save us.
Yeah.
Right? Save us, yes. Or guide us, teach us, help us, give me something to work with. And sometimes that can lead to you meeting someone amazing in your life, like a mentor or a teacher or a guide. Don't get me wrong, but there are many of them out there. But unfortunately, it can lead you to, being under the illusion of somebody who isn't necessarily who they say they are, right? Whether that be like a guru or again, a teacher or a guide, a spiritual teacher, specifically in the spiritual and spiritual conscious communities too. But we just have to be careful. And the problem is with pedestals is, right, when you put someone on a pedestal, when you're putting them up here, you're putting yourself down here. So you're actually no longer meeting them on a kind of like level, like playing field, in terms of like where you're coming from psychologically. Because what you're doing psychologically is, when you're putting someone above here, you're actually putting them as an authority, right? Maybe not a physical authority, but you're doing it as a psychological authority. And even that itself actually is more detrimental than the physical aspect. Yeah. Because when you're doing it psychologically, as we both know, everything everything is
Yeah.
here, right? You live from here. So yeah, I'll go back to you, but I just wanted to touch on the
Yeah.
internet thing, because that's
And
gets people.
well, see, this is so interesting because um this is also why it took so long to even come out and teach meditation, because I'm doing all this work and I'm like, but I've still got these things. But whereas I'm on Instagram and it's like these guys have no problem. I'm like, why is it that how is it so effortless for them while I'm putting in so much work, but still I don't feel like I'm where they were portraying themselves.
Mm.
I I just remembered another funny thing, which was I remember again back in uni, basically like my secondary school was all boys. Sixth form was the first time I got to say hello to a girl that was the same age as me. So when come uni, I just remember just looking online, like, for the confidence aspect, and some guy was just like, remember, girls take dumps too. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good way to level the platform there with the play field.
Yeah,
And I got
I went
to
to an all boys school too, man. My secondary school was all boys. It was chaos. It was carnage, fights every day. And you would have thought that in terms of like, young boys, young teenage boys growing up, you would have thought that if it would have been a little bit more mild in terms of like the egos and the competition and stuff like that, because there weren't any girls around. It was even
yeah,
worse, bro.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was even worse. I don't know how that even came around, but I had the same experience as you with going to a secondary school. And then we had like school discos every few months where you got to meet the girls from the all girls school. And then you'd have like that because internet wasn't as big then. You had like MSN and stuff, but even then it was still
Yes.
like before you really got a hold of that. So you had like this one opportunity, this one chance to like get your girl at the disco, and then you'd have like conversations about, yeah, we're gonna get this. Yeah. So
Oh my gosh. I
yeah,
feel you, man. I remember
interesting. Man.
I was in choir as well, and this one time, um, we were singing, and there was other schools there, and there was this all girls school, and oh my gosh, it's just that I just remember the whole ego thing. I was just like, when you just like trying to make jokes with your friend just to kind of like big yourself up. I was just doing a bunch of that. Oh man, good memories.
Yeah, I mean, why is it that we, whatever age that you're at, there's always going to be that degree of um idolization, right? And then obviously with it coming back to self-worth. And I think that you go through different periods of your life where the self-worth is at a higher degree, and then at a lesser degree. At a higher degree for me now, like I have a lot of self-worth. Definitely, I've really learned to appreciate myself. But I feel that, especially when you're going through puberty, right, and you're going through those teenage years, the self-worth diminishes. And I'm not sure why that is. That is something to explore, most definitely. But we find that, you'll find that a lot of what goes on then can end up being the wounds that you then carry on in your later life, right? And some of the wounds that you end up revisiting usually happen around those periods of your life. So yeah, it's interesting to know. There isn't much support or much like awareness or teachings for younger people. I think when they're going through those periods of their life. But even now, you got people that are in their 50s, their 60s that still struggle with self-worth, right? So how do we cultivate that? I mean, for me, I don't think there's one answer, to be honest with you. I think it's a progressive answer, a progressive journey. But I think that the more that we can direct our awareness back to ourselves, then the more that we're going to be able to cultivate that. And I think especially now with the great reset and the great awakening and all of this stuff, and people are becoming we'll just tell it how it is, right? People are becoming aware of the fact that their government is lying to them, to some degree. And I think that people are calling that an awakening, but that's not an awakening in my opinion, right? This is I want to talk about this because this goes back to imposters and fake gurus, teachers, whatever you want to call it. But becoming aware that your government is lying to you that's not right. Sorry to burst your bubble, but that's not anything new, right? That's nothing new, and that is just an awareness. Okay. However, let me say that awareness is something that is very, very powerful in itself, right? Because awareness is everything. Awareness is the first step to change. You can't change anything unless you're aware of it. So that awareness is something so like has so much potential only if you direct it back to yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
It has to be directed back to yourself. Otherwise, you're going to direct it outside of yourself again. And it's going to be directed towards people that you're going to be looking for to guide you, to teach you, to help you on this path that you're on. Because a lot of these times we have these realizations and we don't know how to make sense of them ourselves. So we look outside of ourselves for the sense to be made for us, whether that be for a book, but usually it's for a teacher, for a guide, right? So these are just other ways, I think, more relatable now in this moment in time for anybody that is going through these things. That, you know, they are becoming aware of the fact that not everything is what it seems. That may awareness may be a catalyst for something greater. But you're only going to be able to allow that to unfold for you in that sense of being great if you direct that awareness back to yourself, right? So, you know, I think that there's always that saying of there is a difference between the message and the messenger. The message is what we're really after, but we get attached and we get emotionally involved with the messenger, even though it can be someone that we've never even met before, right? But because we've listened to 50 or 60 YouTube videos, we now think that we know these people. You don't know this person. You know what they have decided to present. It's really that simple. So, you know, focus on the message, of course, but at the same time, if the message is coming from someone who isn't necessarily who they say they are, then you have to be mindful of the message itself as well, to some degree, right?
Yes. So then, you know, they say real recognize real. So what other aspects of would you say, what other aspects of a trustworthy messenger, like what are the other aspects of someone that you could trust to deliver you a message? What are the things that you notice, like, okay, this quality is usually among those that are about the message rather than the ego?
Maybe don't even look for things, right? Maybe just observe, because you learn way more by just observing than you do looking for things. Usually if you look for something, you're going to find it, whether that be good, whether that be bad, right? I have this thing of where I use myself as an example to a degree, where, you know, if there's someone that I'm looking to, right, and I'm looking to this person as a mentor or as a guide, I think with people, it's always important to take your time with people, and allow people to present themselves to you in a way where you're not kind of like that. It's easy for people when they present themselves to fit into a category or a checklist that people may actually have unknowingly. So, you know, people look for the guy that has all of his shit together, right? The guy that is articulate, or the woman that is articulate. You know, the guy that says the right thing, says certain words. There's all of these, like, there's this checklist of them. When we come across those people, like, oh, I'm going to subscribe to them, or I'm going to follow them, I'm going to do their course and stuff like that. I think it's difficult to be able to perceive someone initially straight away. So you may sometimes find yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You may sometimes find yourself in spaces watching YouTube videos where you don't necessarily have an idea of this person initially, but I think that you have to trust your intuition first and foremost. Your intuition is not always going to be right, but I think your intuition is one of the most powerful, traits or qualities that you can actually cultivate for yourself, because your intuition will guide you to where you need to be. And sometimes you need to actually meet these people and have these and be let down by these people, because it's a lesson, right? It's a lesson. I've been through it, and you've been through it, right? Idolizing people who then later down the line aren't who they said they were, aren't who they present themselves to be. But it also is a lesson for you to not do that to yourself as well, right? Because again, when it comes to a lack of self-worth, we can actually use that as an excuse to present ourselves to the world, where we pretend that everything's great, we pretend that everything's good, we pretend that we've got our shit together, when really and truthfully we don't. So I think vulnerability is something to look for.
Yes.
There is no perfect person. Anybody that says they've completed it or mastered it are talking out their ass. I think just looking for, not even looking for, but connecting with people who are really. I have a really good eye, and I know when someone's real now, and I think that I've recently experienced another program of where people listen. Let me just say this, and I'll say it straight. Just because someone's not vegan and someone's not spiritual doesn't mean that they're a great person and you shouldn't connect with them, right?
Please, let me rewind that, please. I needed to say that one more time.
Yeah, let me say that fucking straight, because I'm getting sick of this now. Just because someone's not vegan and someone's not spiritual, whatever that means, because that has been defined in so many different ways. Just because they're not those two things doesn't mean that they're not a great person. They're not a great human being. They're not someone that you should connect with. They're not someone that you should listen to. They're not someone that doesn't have something valuable to provide to you, right? There's value in every single human being, whether they're vegan or whether they're not, right? But the problem is now is that we're using these labels, we're using these images of people as a way to judge someone. And I wanted to share that and say that because there's a lot of division now, a lot of alienation of specific people.
Charlie, I got punched in the face earlier this year just for that message.
Yeah.
I basically had done that with my family, essentially, not not taking their advice seriously, because I had this idolization of, a person who gives good advice is this, is that, is this, and the very people that I had those criteria were the ones that took me out. And at the end of it, and that's when it completely shattered the whole division. Like, I didn't even realize I had it. Like, it was just suddenly there at that moment. And boom, that completely shattered where I'm looking. Like, if anyone's trying to give a spiritual message and they're trying to make a difference between a person who's walking out the street versus someone who's, like, for me, meditates 4 hours a day, like, everyone's got a spirit, like, spiritual, like, anyone can meditate. You're not special because you do it. And I feel like another aspect that I see is simplicity. Like, when someone's very simple with a message, like, everyone's like, whether someone's a spiritual or not, they can understand your message. And if you're not able to portray it that way, maybe that's reflecting something about you.
For sure. Yeah, messages shouldn't be divisive, right? Messages should be they should be in resonance, right? So my stuff's called The Resonance, and it's called The Resonance for a reason, because it isn't for a specific person, it's for whoever resonates with it. And I think that when it comes to in terms of idolization as well, you can actually even idolize an idea, right? It doesn't have to be a person. You can idolize an idea, you can idolize an image. That could be an example of that, of what I just mentioned, would be like when you come into the relationship aspect of life, right? You have this idolization of an image of who you think or who you hope your partner to be, and then when you meet someone and they don't necessarily like live up to those expectations, those skewed and bizarre expectations that you have, then you then project from that space of whatever comes up for you, because you've had, again, you're being let down, expectations aren't being met. And a lot of the idolizations that we have are unrealistic, truth be told, right? And this is again going back to the people, because the expectations that we have as human beings are unrealistic. When we place them into other people, I think the best thing that you can do is have no expectations for anyone, right? Don't even have any expectations for yourself if they're too far-fetched, if they're unrealistic. And I think that sometimes when we're not able to meet our own expectations, and when we see other people potentially fulfilling those expectations, that's again another catalyst for ourselves looking outside of ourselves, right? That I'm struggling to do this specific thing, but I can see that person is doing it, so now I'm going to go and attach myself to them. I want to know how they do it, why they do it, and this is where those false prophets, they get people in, right? This is where they get people in, because they know that they've got something, or they're portraying that they've got something that somebody else doesn't.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, people put this person on a pedestal, and I'm telling you, I've met these people in real life, and it's not it. There is no one above you. There is no one above you. And also be mindful of the words that we use, right? You can appreciate someone, okay? But there is a difference between appreciating and idolizing, appreciating and worshiping, right? We live through the words that we use. So be mindful of the words and the conversations that you're having with yourself up here. If you catch yourself idolizing someone, fall back and remember, actually, no, I'm just going to appreciate them, because then I'm not getting, there's a difference between that, because appreciating is not being attached, right?
Yeah, and like, don't get it wrong, like, just because like I mentioned to the person listening that, anyone, for example, with spirituality, everyone's got spirit, everyone can meditate. That doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge someone who's put in the work. Like my current teacher, he has over like 20k hours of meditation in the bank, and they say you only need 10,000 hours to master something. So he's mastered meditation more than twice. He's not on a pedestal. What I love about him is that even if there's a twinge of me like, whoa, this person, like because he's just so normal, it's almost impossible to idolize him. And he just comes across like, if you had walked, like just talked to this person and run across him on the road, you wouldn't even realize that, hey, this person's got this in the bank. So it's not about, not acknowledging someone who's put in the work. Like, like a mentor and a guide is a mentor and a guide, is not someone above you, like Charlie mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, spirituality isn't a meditation. It's not a book. It's not a cacao ceremony either. It's not any of these things. It's not plant medicine, right? Those are just tools that can help you to maybe make some adjustments or changes or whatever in your life. But I think the experience itself is more of an inward, internal experience. You don't necessarily have to speak it or articulate it, right? It's something that you can actually go through very, very, very successfully without actually being, without projecting it, without turning it into a course, without selling it, without doing all of these things. So, it's just, it's my view, it's my opinion at the end of the day, but it is definitely rooted in some real truth. But I think it really does all come back to self-worth, really and truly, the idolization thing, right? Because what we can do is we can dig ourselves, even just not even literally, right, but we can dig ourselves into a hole, even just by verbally, the way that we talk to ourselves, right? Oh, I'm not very good at this. Oh, I'm not good at that. I don't do well at that. I don't like that. So then, as we dig ourselves into those holes by doing that, we then look for someone to pull us out of it, right? And it can be a cycle. It can literally be a cycle of where we do this to ourselves. And then once we get pulled out of it, we then go into the next thing where we dig ourselves into another hole and get pulled out of it and all of this stuff. So again, you got to be careful with people. The problem is when you put someone on the pedestal, going back to what you just said, bro, right? Is that what I was saying earlier, is that person, if you will observe that person is no longer going to meet you as a human, right?
There you go.
They're no longer going to meet you in a way where you can actually just have a normal conversation with them. You're always going to, the only way that you're going to be able to meet them is how they want to be met, right? Not how you want to be met.
Yeah,
as a person, right? Not the image or whatever it is that they're presenting or portraying, but as a person, right? And then because we fall into that trap, we then fail to realize that, hold on, I don't even actually know this person.
Yeah.
I don't know this person. I don't know them as a person. What do they eat? What do they like to eat? What's their favorite color? What are their hobbies? What do they actually do? How comes I've never seen them in real life? How comes they've never even actually wanted to meet me in real life? How comes they've never just been vulnerable with me or shared something with me that people do tend to do as a real human being? These are all the red flags you got to look for, right? Because they're almost like inaccessible to a degree.
Yeah.
Right. And if someone's inaccessible, why are they inaccessible? Why are they hiding themselves away? Anybody that I've worked with recently, if they phone me, I pick up the phone. Hey, how are you? What's going on? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And so on. You can't do that with a lot of these people. Why is that? Because they're hiding.
Exactly.
Right? Because they're presenting themselves, right? And once the presentation's done, once the curtains close, whatever it is they're doing can be completely different from what you see, right? Like catfishing, almost. Catfishing
There we go.
Catfishing comes in different forms.
Yeah.
Really and truly, it's an act. So I feel that the more time that you spend cultivating your own, whatever it is that you're trying to learn, try and do it yourself. Just give it a go. Trust yourself. Just try and give it a go. And even if it is something so simple as to, like in this case, meditating, right? Just do it without even listening to a YouTube video. Do it without actually having any kind of influence externally, and just see how you get on. You might actually then be able to cultivate your own practice intuitively and organically, where you might have then something that nobody else is, say, teaching. Not that you have to go and teach it, but it's something that's yours, right? It's something that's your practice. So this goes into a book that I've been reading recently, J. Krishnamurti, Freedom from the Known. An amazing book for breaking through programs and stuff like that. He talks about how thought is old, which is, thought is always based on a past experience, right? So when we go into a new experience, we're always trying to define this new experience based on thought, which is an old experience. So how can a new experience ever be a new experience? It's always going to be an old experience, right?
Yeah.
So because we do this thing as humans, we're trying to define something or judge something as basing it on old thought forms or old constructs. So it's the same as when you're doing these practices. It's like, hold on, that's somebody else's practice. That's somebody else's way of doing something, right? And again, this is where we end up with these false prophets. We end up with these fake gurus and these fake teachers, because we haven't been able to establish that or be able to realize that we can actually cultivate some of these experiences ourselves if we put the time in, like you said, if we put the work in and trust ourselves. It's a lot of the answers that we're seeking will come from us, not somebody else, because the answers that they have are to their questions, not to yours. They may resonate a little bit, and it may seem like that's the truth for you, but it's not, because that's their truth. And there's different degrees of truth, and this is again going into the whole truth rabbit hole, but we won't do that because that is a rabbit hole.
And yeah, if I'm honest, there's never been one time in my life where I've learned a process or a program and I've followed it exactly. There's always been a tweak, because how can someone who doesn't know you say it straight for you? It's almost impossible.
So yeah, so true. And this is what I do as a person, right? I take what resonates and I discard the rest. So back when I was in a estate agency, I was an estate agent for 9 years, and I worked with many great estate agents. I met so many cool people in that industry, and there was always something about one of them that I thought, oh, I could definitely add that to my arsenal, if you like. I could definitely add that to what I'm trying to cultivate for me. And then I realized that I was a great estate agent in my own right, and I ended up having the best of what I thought was the best of everyone else into one practice, right? And then with my unique twist and spin on it, which was me, so it was authentic, and it was always coming from that authentic place. Like I wasn't pretending to be them, it was me, but I was just using like some of their skills that I knew worked really, really well. So I feel like if you can apply this and take this like framework into everything, but always remember to infuse your personality, right? Your uniqueness, put your own twist, your own spin on it, then it becomes yours and it becomes you. So yeah, man.
Yeah, that is man, it's put the name Resonance, and the Resonance podcast is, as through this conversation, is opened up like so much more the deeper meaning to it. I just completely love it. It's amazing. And man, so then what? Okay, so I guess we just leave anyone with a message that you feel from your heart from this conversation. With regarding, I guess, whatever message what message do you want to leave for everyone just from your heart from this conversation?
Yeah, I think, with everything that's going on right now in the world, a lot of doom and gloom. I'd say that not everything is doom and gloom, first and foremost. Not everything is doom and gloom. It's definitely not doom and gloom. Turn your phone off, turn your TV off, and you'll realize it's not doom and gloom. But I think that the more, and just from my experience, right, because again, it has to come from my experience, the more that I've learned to just like appreciate myself by not judging myself, first and foremost. If you're always judging yourself, you're always going to be in that cycle of, not feeling worthy, right? And I think it has to start with you, but also start to, again, going back to what we were saying before this started, right? In terms of the investment aspect, just start to be mindful of what it is that you do every day, how you spend your time, the people around you, right? Because the company that you keep is so important, especially in this time, right? Community is going to be massive moving forward, massive, right? Huge. Everything's going to be revolved around community. So you want to make sure that you're going to be we want to make sure that you're going to be in the right communities, right? You want to put yourself around the right people that make you smarter, people that empower you, people that, really compliment you, people that not even just verbally compliment you, but people that compliment you by you just being in their presence, right? And so on. And I think that now moving forward is such a good time to get into yourself. The people and the tools outside of yourself are always going to be there. They're always going to be there. There is no like extinction, if you like. They're always going to be there. So spend more time with yourself. Spend time appreciating the little things that you may not even find appreciation in, but other people do. So, even ask someone that's close to you, what's your favorite thing about me? Like, what do you like about me? And if they say, and whatever it is that they say, if it's something that makes you feel a little bit awkward or a little bit like, oh, really? Then actually explore that. Like go and explore it within yourself and be like, oh yeah, I am. That is right about me. I do that. I am kind to people, and so on. I think, I just want to say to people, appreciate yourself, because at the end of the day, you are the value. It's you who is the value, right? Like unique individuality is the biggest gift that we all have. It's everything. It's the only thing that we do have. And exploring that and learning to appreciate the gift that you do have, which is you then start to see the value in yourself. And in doing that, you then start to rely on others and false prophets and fake gurus and teachers less, right? And in doing that, you learn to cultivate again that understanding, that knowing, that intuition of yourself. And when you the more you cultivate that, you're not going to be fooled by anyone. Trust me.
That's it. That's beautiful.
What about you, brother? You got to give the people a message.
Well, I'm just going to sum it up in a sentence, which is there's no whole without you. And every now and then I'll actually drop that message in some way or form, is that, hey, like, this wholeness, this unity is only a unity because of your special piece. And like you said, that gift, man, like, you don't realize how, like, there's some people where I'm just like, bro, I don't know how you do this, but this is amazing. and they just do it like it's nothing.
Effortless.
Yeah, and just tap into that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so man, where can people find you and what are you up to? Because you're up to some interesting things.
Can't find me anywhere, bro. I'm hiding. No, I'm joking. I'm not hiding. You can find me on Instagram at Charlie Sellens, my full name, which is Charlie and then Sellens. All of my links to whatever it is that I've got going on is there. I've been very slow, very patient with my work and what it is that I'm doing. But I am coming into a period now with content that I've been creating that will begin to be released. So yeah, my focus and my thing at the moment is investing, cryptocurrency, but more investing. So a lot of my work is revolved around that. I have a podcast too, which is called The Resonance. And if anybody just wants to connect with me, because I am real, I am a real person, you can message me, I'll message you back. You're more than welcome to. So yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much for coming on. There's definitely going to be a part 2, man. I really enjoyed this convo.
We got another one to do based on what we had a conversation about before.
Yeah, that was a whole podcast on itself.
That was epic. That was epic. So thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you, Manvir. You're a great guy. Anybody that does want to learn meditation from someone who's real, then Manvir is your man. Trust me, take my word for it. He is a real dude. And he is about being genuine and authentic and always bringing everything back to you. And this is when you know someone's a good teacher, when someone's worth being guided from or being taught from, is when they always bring everything back to you and give you the skills and the tools that you need to not actually be dependent on that teacher or guide, right? Those are the best teachers and guides.
Thank you, brother. And for whoever's watching, wishing you a beautiful day as always. Manvir signing out. I trust this episode served you well. If you in particular are going through self-worth issues in any way, which is manifesting in your life, could be in your business where, like me, you were hesitant in the industry you were being in or charging your worth. In your work, you know, you wanted to ask for that higher level job, but you're not sure if you were even worthy of it. And even like in your relationships, you know, a lot of these dynamics play a lot in the relationships where you may not feel like you're deserving of having your needs met, whether that's from your friend or your partner, so you fail to express it. If any of these are affecting you in your life, then I invite you to come book a clarity call with me. This is just a free consult where we get to look at where you're at, where you want to be, and what we can do to help you get there. And if we're a good fit, we can work together. As always, with love, wishing you a beautiful day. Manvir signing out.